Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Catherine Tolley, as Sabrina mentioned. I am a technical architect here at Stone Ridge Software. I have experience going all the way back to Exapta 3.0 when I was at Microsoft. I've been working on Dynamics 365 almost since it came out. I have done a few different projects, and I really focus on the technical side. And one of the technical sides is making sure that your environment is kept up to date or that it's being serviced. And so today we're going to talk about one version and what one version is. I'll go through the process flow of how one version or how updates get applied to your system. And then I left some time for you guys to be able to ask questions because there are a lot of questions around this topic. So let's get started since we have only 30 minutes about one version. So what is one version? One version was Microsoft's idea to keep everyone up to date with regular releases of Dynamics 365 finance and operations so that people had a consistent experience. In the past, on previous versions of Dynamics, there were features that made it more difficult to be able to upgrade. So we had the concept of layering, and they did away with that in versions of D365. They went to extensions, and with that, it makes it a lot easier to be able to upgrade your environment. It does not nearly take as long. In the past, we would have upgrades where I think I've probably done close to 100 upgrades, and the shortest time frame I think I ever did an upgrade or just a platform was, or not a platform, but was 6 weeks. And now we can do these updates in a week or two, and the time is mostly on the testing, whereas in the past it used to be a lot on the development side. And so the reason why, and it's important to remember, why is Microsoft doing this? Why are we making this change? It's important to keep the context because some of it is not maybe as pleasant as, or it adds things to your project. But if we remember why Microsoft is doing this, and if you ever have tried to upgrade in the past, you'll know that this is, and I do believe this is a move in the right direction, but there's some things that come with that. So to know some of the other details about one version is that they will have 10 updates within a year. There will be a major release in April and October. And so there's really 8 minor releases and then the 2 major. And the major releases are where they're going to give you new functionality. That's also where they'll deprecate features. Every release is backward compatible. So the thing to know with that is you do have to get to at least version 10. So your code needs to be on version 10, but then once you're on version 10, they say that it's backward compatible. So what that means is they don't do things like change table structures or index changes that would break the application. I mentioned that deprecated features happen in the April and October, but you're given 1 year of lead time. So that gives you 1 year if you are using something that's deprecated to move off of that. And then for the new features that come in, there's a new feature called feature management, and that's where you can go in and turn on or off a feature to be able to use it within your implementation. The other thing to know is that you can only be behind 2 months or 2 updates. So if you, let's say you apply April, that means you could skip May, you could skip June, but you would have to apply July's update. The other thing that I would tell you with all of this is that Microsoft has changed their story a couple times since this idea was first released back last July. So what I would tell you is make sure that you're going back. I'm putting some links in the article. There's one version FAQ, there's calendars out on the docs.microsoft.com, and those will be updated as they make new decisions and if they make any changes around any of this. And what I will tell you is the piece that has changed is this, how often you have to be applying the updates. At first they said it would be, you had to do it monthly, and they got so much feedback that right now it's currently standing at you can be 3 months behind. So here's a schedule of when they will be releasing these updates. And you can see it's January, February, they take March off. You have the major in April and then minor updates in May and June. And the thing to know with this is we say updates and then major updates. Some of you, if you are familiar with previous versions or even on D365 or even Dynamics 2012 or 2009, is you used to be able to get individual hotfixes. On version 10, that goes away. So there is no more individual hotfixes that you can get and install on your system. Every update is both an application and a kernel. So if you need a fix, let's say you have a bug and a fix is in the February update, you have to take that February update and take everything that comes with it. There is some one version setup. So once you're on version 10, you should see under your project settings. So I call this the hamburger bar, and under that hamburger bar, and it's called project settings. And then you have update settings. And this update settings is where you go in and specify what environment will get updated first and the calendar of when that would happen. We'll go through and we'll look at that in a lot more detail, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that there was actual setup for one version, and that's in LCS and Lifecycle Services. I also wanted to give you right up front some of the different reference materials, because as I mentioned, there are some things that are changing. There's the one version FAQ, the service release dates, and then the tech talks. And I'm actually going to bring over my browser so that I can. So here is the one version FAQ, and you can see, it was last updated on April 17th. So as they have different sessions with clients and partners, they get new questions and they add those questions to this document and answer the question. So you might see new questions and responses in here. It just has a lot of great information about what is the process. So that's an important document to know about. The other one is this service update. So this will tell you when the different platforms or the different service updates will be available. And I come to this to tell you that, up until now, we said one version. The idea is you have to be applying these, and there's some setup so that it'll automatically happen. But there are ways to manually apply these to your environment. So if you're in what's called the PEEP program, you can get an early release of a platform update so that you can apply it on your test system yourself and have a longer testing period. Or if you're in the general, it's generally available. So the July one will be available. Typically it's in the second week of the previous month that we see them being uploaded or generally available. And so then you could choose to manually apply it to your environment on that specific week. And if you have it automatically going, that's where this time frame comes in, and it will apply it whatever week of July that you had selected in your LCS settings. So this is important because they, as new platform updates are scheduled, they put the dates out here for you to do your own planning on. Especially if you're in the middle of an implementation, you might have CRPs going on or UAT, and you don't want to be applying an update in the middle of a CRP or a UAT. So this is an important page. The other page that I want to show you is, this is what they call tech talks. And there's a lot of different talks that they do. They're not just specific to one version, but I want to show you this because they have had quite a few presentations, and they call them continuous updates here instead of one version, but so there was one back in April. The other thing is this feature management. So that was last Friday that they covered that new feature called feature management. And then coming up, they're going to be doing some sessions about the regression suite automation tool. So there are some good things that you can get. And I mean, these are Microsoft individuals presenting these sessions. And the last thing that I'll show you is this section that for any platform update, you can come out and look at the what's new to see what features are coming out in that specific version. So for me specifically, I think it was 25, there was a lot around batching and alerts. So that was some important stuff for me to be able to go and look at, and for you to see what's coming and what then might I need to include in my test plan. So if we go back, those are some of the references. Next, I wanted to go through what is the process flow? How does this work? So we put in week 1, 2, 3, and 4, but no, that doesn't have to be the first week. It's your week, depending on what your first week is. So once you go in to LCS, and this is again, if you do the automatic updates. So if you're saying, I'm going to let Microsoft automatically update my system, you pick a week. So you can pick the first, second, or third weekend of the month. And so if you pick the first weekend in the month, then 2 weeks before that, you will get a notice from Microsoft that tells you what are the features that are coming in your next release. The week after that, so 1 week before production would be updated, is when Microsoft will automatically install the platform update to the environment that you selected. And then that week between when it was applied to your sandbox and when it is applied to production is when you have to do your performance or your testing. So you can do automation testing, end user testing, integration testing. And if all is well, then that third weekend is when your production system will be updated. If there is an issue, there's a way for you to log a ticket with Microsoft and have the production deployment canceled. And then your fourth week is your week off. So that's the high level of the process that happens. Is you get a notification of what will be in the update. It updates your sandbox, and then it updates production. And you should be doing testing in that week too, after it's been applied to your sandbox. This is more of a detailed step for the process. So first, In LCS, you have to go in and set up your parameters. And then once you do that, you'll receive the monthly notice that says, here's what is in the update. And then once you get that notice, you should decide if there's anything in that update that you specifically want to test. So for example, if you use alerts and you saw that there was a new feature coming to alerts, you would want to test out some of your alerts to make sure it'll continue to work after this update. And then your sandbox would be updated. You perform testing in that sandbox, and if all goes well, your production environment is updated. Some things before you get started with the one version, and really everybody should be started on the one version because it took effect in April, the end of April. So May is really the first month when you'll start to see some of this if you haven't gone in and made some selections in your LCS project. So before you start, you should understand Microsoft's plan and check back. So those links that I gave you, making sure that you're in contact with your Stone Ridge contact. For everybody, all the Stone Ridge clients, we do have someone on your project and we are communicating with you if things are changing and trying to keep you informed. And if you actively are in an implementation, whoever your technical resource is, they're typically the ones leading this with you. The next thing is you have to decide if you're going to do manual or automatic updates. I would say that right now, a lot of people are deciding to do the manual so that they have more control of when the updates are getting applied. And that's one thing I wanted to make sure clients understood is that, yes, there are automatic updates and you can follow that process of week 1, week 2, week 3. But for a lot of people, that does not work. 1 week of testing is not enough time for them. And so if that's the case for you, you can do manual. But the point is you do have to be applying updates to your system, but you do still have some flexibility on when you choose to apply those updates. Either way, if you're using manual or automatic, you need to go into LCS and update your project settings so that it knows that you are doing automatic, or if you're doing manual. If you're doing automatic, then you need to say which environment and the date, the weekend that it would be updated. The other thing is you need to think through your testing. So with at least quarterly updates, that means that there should be some level of testing that's happening quarterly. For some clients, that's new. They didn't have to do that level of testing in the past. So you should think through, if I'm going to be doing, quarterly or, every other month or even monthly updates, what would need to be tested? What things, and you think through, what do I need to test and make sure I test because it's business critical. If that piece of functionality is down, the business is down. Is there automated tests with the new regression suite automation tool that I could use? What about integrations? How would I test my integration to make sure they're working? And then the last thing is, again, to review those release notes. And the screenshot here shows in LCS, if you don't, you can set yourself up so you'll get emails, but you also, if you went into LCS in the Action Center, you would see when a new platform is available, and you can click on the what's new and go and see that what's new, and again, maybe plan out what you might need to test if you're going to take this platform update. So the best part is actually seeing it at work. So let's go in and see this at work. So if I go over to, this is Stone Ridge's implementation. And so in our LCS project, you can see that this is where I took that screenshot from. This is where it could show up that I need to, or I can get platform 26, and I could click on the what's new. But to set up this one version, I go to the hamburger bar and I go to project settings. And wait for LCS. This is fairly normal, unfortunately. And then I go to my update settings. And in here, I'm going to go through this form because it's not very straightforward to everyone, even me, who worked at Microsoft for many years. So the first thing is the top section is where you say which non-production environment you will do your testing on. So this has to be what we call a tier 2 environment. So here we only have one, so my only option is my test environment, but for some clients you'll have multiples, and you would need to select which environment Microsoft will automatically update. And then the second section is where you pick the weekend that you want. So you could pick the first, second, or third. I'll pick the third, and then you come and you pick the time zone. And then you can pick the day of the week and your time slot. And you can see that right now there's not a whole lot of options, which is why I say keep coming back, because Microsoft says that they're going to continue to add options in here. And then the part, so that part typically is pretty straightforward. The part that's not is if you want to pause. So if you want to pause, then what you have to do is you have to, okay, let me click save. And then I say yes. So you have to save it, and then you have to say, yes, I want to pause. And then you have to click on the button above it that says edit settings. And now this is where you can come in and say, and you can see that it won't let me pick the third one because I can only pause 2 at a time, right? So I pause 2 of them, I click next, and I'm going to say, pending go live, I will manually apply updates during UAT. And I have to confirm that I might miss regulatory. And then the second one is that when you pick to manually update it, they don't guarantee the downtime. And once I do that, I can click confirm. And now it tells you that you have chosen to pause updates until 7:20. So that's how you can come in and pause them. But again, if you say no, then it will go in and update this environment for you on, because I selected the third, the second weekend of the month, my test environment will get updated. And then if you don't have a production environment, there is no production environment for it to update. So know that, you know, it would just monthly until you get a production environment be updating just that test environment. And then if you do have multiple other environments, you are responsible for getting those up to date. So, and the thing to keep in mind is, as well, is that you want to make sure that you are keeping your developer in your build box be a version behind what you're putting into your production and your test system, because those environments are really for your own customized solutions. And typically you would do the Microsoft updates and then come back and push through your own customized